Hi, everybody. Thomas Miller on the Fun Astrology Weekly Overview. We're talking about the week here of June 8th or 9th, depending on when you're catching this. I'm in a motel. There is nothing interesting going on back here, so let's jump right into the chart because that is something we can take a look at. We have a super busy, important week. So the first context of this week that I'd like to get in our heads as we approach the week is to reflect back on what happened on Thursday of last week nationally in the United States involving the White House and the world's richest man. There was a big conflict and it erupted. That is so the energy of this week. We'll take it apart piece by piece. That's the whole. And I wanted you to just know that as we go through this, keep that whole incident in mind because almost every bit of it, as you dissect it, is in this chart right now. The big thing that happens this week happens on Monday evening, 5:02 p.m. Here's the chart. Jupiter enters Cancer for 2025. Now, before we start to go into this chart, which we're going to have to turn some of that clutter off in the middle, because my goodness, it looks like your 3-year-old dumped their spaghetti on the floor, doesn't it, in there? I mean, there's no way you can read that. So I promise we'll pick that apart and turn some of that noise off and look at each of those components piece by piece. But Robert Glasscock and I did an episode on this over on the Old Soul, New Soul Astrology YouTube channel. And if you're not subscribed over there, we'd love to have you do so. But we talked about this, and one of the first things that was said was go back and look at what happened in 2013 when Jupiter entered Cancer the last time. So if we snap our fingers, voila, ask and you shall receive. This is such a different chart. Okay, look, and I know this is not for us to pick apart now, but as you go back in your mind to what happened in 2013 and for that year, that for me was the year that I started podcasting, and it was when I started narrating audiobooks for Fred Dodson. Everything that I'm doing today shifted. Well, look, here's Jupiter entering Cancer, but look what was right next door, the sun. And right now the sun is still over in Gemini. This was in late June back in 2013. Look at the formation that we have. Those of you who have been looking at it already say a kite, a kite. Yes, a big kite. And what are we connecting? Well, Saturn in the midheaven. This is old structures moving out. This is a change in career. Look, Pluto of transformation. When I started doing all this for myself, wow, did things change. Neptune of spirituality and podcasting, of reaching out to people. It's all there. And also, I mean, this wasn't bad either. This is where I think you have to take planets that are in a sign and consider them, because Venus and Mercury, both characteristic of all of the shifts that happen. Now, I'm not trying to make this about me, but you can go back and look at 2013 in light of that, and you can see where some of this took place. And one of the other things that we mentioned in there, my mom passed in early 2013. Before this aspect, it was several months before. But the structure in the 8th house, Saturn in the 8th of the house ruled by Scorpio, that's all stuff that factored in. And a lot of people in the comments on our video over on the other channel said the same thing, that they experienced a death of a loved one or somebody close. But like I said, now we have a completely different chart. First of all, you notice that there are some, and like I said, you kind of like, how do I see into that? Well, we'll get there. There are some squares. There's a yod. Actually, there are two. Here's one. I just want you to see these things. So Pluto is on one side of the yod, the moon on the other, and then Jupiter up there. There's one. You see the other one? Right here. All right, so that's Venus and Jupiter. So Jupiter is in two yods. Obviously, you see that it's conjoined, not the sun. The sun is really out of play here. It's too far this way to be in play. It's in another sign, so we don't have that. But we do have Mercury because it enters Cancer on Sunday the 8th. So that would be today, probably, as this video. I don't know if I'll release it Saturday or Sunday. But there you go. So there's that conjunction. I'm just pointing the real estate out right now. Let's don't worry about the interpretations. Mars, you can tell, is in some kind of a square coming off of there, right? Well, it's over to Venus and Chiron. So there's tension in this chart already, we can tell. So we have our Great Pyramid, our 3 points of the Great Pyramid. Let's check that out and see how those are affected here. Well, Pluto is one of those legs of the yod. So it's in a challenging quincunx or inconjunct aspect. And then the big one, obviously, is the square to the war planets, Saturn and Neptune. So you can see already right there, we have just a lot of conflict that we didn't have built into the chart in 2013. Now, voila, you can see the squares clearly now. So here's another one that, see, really got buried in all that other noise. This is the moon wobble. So this is the thing that Carl Payne Toby observed, that when the sun is either conjunct or square to the nodes of the moon, then awkward, weird things happen. And it's for a period of between 14 and 21 days prior to, and can run up to 7 days post that aspect. Well, that becomes exact on Friday. And now I'm still looking at the Jupiter ingress here into Cancer, but by Friday, so that really makes all of this kind of at the point of this, what's called a T-square, but it is square to the nodes of the moon. That brings that volatility in. And what does the one thing that it's kind of like everybody knows that Jupiter does in astrology? It amplifies, it expands things. Well, see, there's a component. We're kind of dissecting the parts now of the big breakup from last week. And this is one of them. And then obviously this square, the biggest one that you see there, is to really catching all of this. And it is kind of ironic that the part of fortune is there in Aries as well. It's too far removed, but you got to say that there was some fortune that was collaterally damaged in that whole thing. So we have that square. And these, as we've said all the way through, are the planets that have led to big major conflicts the last time they were in these positions individually, just individually, not together. They haven't been in there together in that spot since all the way back to the 500s BC. We're talking ancient Babylon here. It's literally Nebuchadnezzar, 500 BC. So we don't have a correlation with that really that we can look at. However, we do know that the past Civil War, it was here. We know that past changes of things like the Berlin Wall coming down were here. So when this happens, we're expecting these conflicts anyway. You can bring it down to these granular interpersonal levels. And this is where it is to say that during this season, it's just best to let it go, let it be, let it ride. Don't make a big deal out of something that could have just passed over, and you might have that situation in your own life with your family or at the job with a coworker, whatever the situation could be for you. Just try to not escalate it, because right now, just as astrology is showing us, that if it blows, it's going to be a moon wobble. Now, because this is, if you will, the natal chart of this Cancer 2025 ingress of Jupiter, we also have to consider these other points. So these other squares involve the moon of our emotions, conflicted with Mars. And see, here again is this big public emotional wound of two big egos who are trying to stand out. That's all about Mars and Leo, isn't it? Leo is about being out there, me first kind of thing. In a good way, it can be very positive. It's the performer. It's the politician. Well, in here, it ended up being in conflict. And we have Pluto in Aquarius of don't tell me what to do, square to Venus of what was a friendship is basically probably gone, you know? So Yeah, like I said, this is a completely different chart than what we saw before. Now, let's cover the rest of the challenges. These are the oppositions. Really, the big one is the moon, opposite the planet of bzzzt, the surprises. Well, we sure had that. And in Sagittarius, that's the free bird side, isn't it? So I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't want to get into the politics of all of this. It's a sad situation for our country. Hopefully, it tones down. Now, let's take a look here at the other two challenging points. So the moon is opposite Uranus. Well, the moon is in the dual sign of Sagittarius, and you can just factor in the surprise factor of Uranus, the bzzz of Uranus. And I know this did not happen. This happened several days before this, but all of this energy was applying when that did happen. This was the culmination, but it was applying. It was getting stronger. It was all in the mix. So Pluto also is in this quincunx. There we were talking about that. The moon is in a quincunx, and then also the moon in a quincunx down to Venus. So what that brings is, for all of those characteristics, is I don't understand you right now kind of interpretation. It's a tension. It's a we're not communicating here. You've been in those conversations with somebody where you just have to stop and say, I'm sorry, but we're just not getting anywhere here. Well, that's kind of the energy that we have with this. So emotionally, things can be conflicted. Jupiter is expanding it. It's around communication is also involved that could lead, if you're not careful, to major transformative events. And that's what I'm saying is, just on a total personal level here, we have to be careful, because if something does erupt right now, it could be permanent. It could be Pluto nuclear, like that was, kind of a nuclear bomb kind of explosion of something that you don't want or don't necessarily need. Maybe it's better to try to hold that relationship for where it is together. And I'm talking about individually. I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about something for you and me, that maybe it would be better to try to hold that relationship together, or don't fracture it by angry words this week. The sky is not on your side for that. Here are the positive aspects, and I did leave the quincunxes in there because the yods are tied together by positive aspects. So let's just look at that from a fated perspective. Well, I think this obviously is re-emphasizing what we're dealing with these 3 points of this, what I'm calling the Great Pyramid, between the 0 points of Aquarius, Aries, and Gemini. So the fatedness of all that is going to be taking place during this is absolutely being pointed out, called out in the sky. It's a quick yod. It's not a substantial yod, but it's just one of those little signatures that says, for the day on Monday, the moon moves so fast that these legs do not hold together. But it is just saying that it's indicating this potential change, potential splits, unique ways of doing things, my way of doing things, and then surprises, things that could come up out of left field. That's the thing, try to shore up left field as much as possible. This one puts the moon and Venus into play together with Jupiter. So now the moon is up here, and this is our emotions. I know Sagittarius is kind of like the flamboyant, gregarious kind of sign, but there's also the deep spirituality that's reflected, and it's ruled by none other than the star of the day, Jupiter. So this is really strong stuff in the sky, saying that the things that we love, you might have to face at some point, letting go of some of it. That's the Venus leg. Now, Venus and Jupiter in this sextile, which is a good thing for today, a very good thing for today. The two planets that are considered by the ancients as benefics are in a sextile relationship. They just have the moon in the middle of it. And of course, that puts the moon in the midpoint, which basically puts the moon, that's definitely in an opposition there to Uranus, as we saw before. So I hope that just kind of, you can look at that and see the symbolism of, wow, this really is affecting my emotions, and there could be suddenness to it. There could also be signs of astrology pointing to the sky. I think of the three wise men in the story of Jesus, the Nativity. We saw the star and we came. Well, that was taking action based on the sky. And that's where we have the sky guiding us through this. So whatever is there and whatever does affect us, the chart is also saying, don't forget to look at the sky, look up, look above. And that's why you're watching this video, is to see what another person might say about what's going on this week. Then we have the sextile to the Great Pyramid. And the other thing we have here, remember we talked about, see, we got two little pyramids in here, don't we? We talked about Mars being a part of this in a positive way, that putting yourself out there in positive ways might very well be part of this next year with Jupiter in Cancer. Jupiter loves Cancer. It's in exaltation in Cancer. It's comfortable there. First thing it does when it gets in is not the square to Saturn. It's not the square to Neptune. It's not to cross over Mercury. The first thing that it does is to take off its shoes and go to the fridge. It's like it's comfortable. It's almost home, not quite home, but it's home enough that it is that comfortable. So we have good things. We do have a couple of challenges. It's going to be interesting. This is, like I said, not the same chart. There are tensions that have to be acknowledged. Now, if we give this about 2 weeks, then a lot of this clutter will move out. So the thing is we have to hold the space here at the beginning to acknowledge all these tensions. And then after, like I say, about 2 weeks' time, that it's going to move on out and things will clear substantially. So just get through this first part, but keep in mind what is at stake here. And if you are faced with a situation, just remember the explosion that happened in the news last week and project that to say, do I want something like that to happen in my own life or in this situation? Obviously, I think your answer would be no. So hook a left, go to the right, do something, dodge, delay. Let me think about this. I'll get back with you. Email slowly, don't be in conflicting situations. That's the best way to handle it. Now, we do have a full moon in Sagittarius. That Sagittarius moon is full on Wednesday. So we have to do a coyote howl. Ow! I'm watching my meter here to see if it holds up okay. Ow! I'm sure the neighbors around this room are probably wondering what in the world is going on. The audio podcast has a better one. The next thing that happens in the week sequentially is the square here between the sun and the nodes of the moon. So the moon wobble peaks, there they are at 22 degrees. Just wanted to point that out. But you can see how much closer now we are to this. So that just brings it in. Then on Sunday, we have two big squares. Mars squares Uranus, and then also Jupiter squares Saturn. It will square Neptune on Wednesday the following week. Mars squares Uranus, and then also on Sunday, Jupiter squares Saturn, the first of the two. It will hit Neptune on Wednesday of next week, the following week. So we've pretty much talked about those. There's just, again, that symbolism this week is going to be building all week long, because this is not until next Sunday that Mars and Uranus, so these are these angry surprises, is just baked into the sky. So in putting this weekend together, I was just amazed at how we had this, could not have had a bigger symbolism of everything that's in this chart right now. So we're going to enjoy Jupiter moving into Cancer. We're going to enjoy the same kind of connections that maybe that we experienced in 2013, but I think you see that there's a pretty big reason to say that this chart is wired together differently. So these areas are going to be coming more from this transformation side, It's more affected by the Great Pyramid and everything that is changing there. And we don't have anything that we can go back and say, this is what has happened before, because this hasn't happened before. So we are kind of wading into new territory, and I would imagine that that's part of this as well. So I really would guard against, because of the stark difference of these two charts, guard against just because it happened then means it will happen again now. And I know for some of you who lost people close to you, that will be a sigh of relief. That's always possible with Jupiter, but let's just remember that just because it happened then doesn't mean it's going to happen now. And that's for sure. This one has its own legs. And the thing is just, especially for these next couple of 3 weeks, hold the space lightly, gently, and don't forget it. This is like super serious. Duck every curveball you can. Just get out of the way of it. All right? Hope that helps. I love you so much. Thanks for watching. Have a great week. And we'll see you on the audio podcast. And by the way, Kristin and I on Wednesday are going to be doing a video of the Great Pyramid related to her chart. So be sure to catch that on Wednesday. Little special something we're going to do. And I got all the responses. I'm working my way through them. There are a bunch. We probably have all the signs covered. If not, when we get to yours, if we don't have an example chart, we'll let you know. Thanks for responding to that so incredibly. It's like a little bit overwhelming, but that's great. That's perfect. We got a bunch of charts. So thank you so much, and we will see you back on the audio side back here next week.